wonderful debate night party of which there are 3 more and you should go to them because it was great fun. And while I was lying back on the couch in the jacuzzi, you know, watching the screen, because that's exactly what these election night parties are like, I couldn't help but look at Mitt Romney up there, a man, you know, who thinks 47% of this room, so let's say this half of the room, doesn't deserve to vote. And Barack Obama, a man stumbling over his words, who serially failed to deliver his promises. I couldn't help but think, you know what would be much better? What would be much better is, rather than having 2 candidates, you just had the Queen giving a speech. So that is very much the inspiration behind what I'm going to tell you today. Now, I'm quite familiar with American history, and I'm aware very much of the tragedy that was the War of Independence. And very many mistakes were made in that war. And I'm also aware of the fact that in the war, Texas didn't exist during the War for Independence. There were 13 colonies. But I like to think that had Texas existed during the War for Independence, then it would have been a Tory state that stood with the crown rather than the rebels over there. So for the purposes of this debate, we are the crown and they are the rebels. They're the colonial army and we're the redcoats, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously this man here is a veritable Benedict Arnold supporting me in doing this. So what do we propose on this side of the house? Well, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, you know, one of the greatest exports of Britain is Doctor Who. So we would say, were Doctor Who to appear with his time machine, the TARDIS, we would say, don't go back in time and defeat the Daleks, go back in time and defeat George Washington. Because he's the real intergalactic menace that you need to stop. And ladies and gentlemen, we think the reason why we would be able to convince Doctor Who to do this is because ultimately we think Britain would be much better off under a constitutional monarchy than under the disastrous system of government you have. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, okay? Now the first thing I'd say about it is I'm just going to explain a little bit about how the British system works. The way the British system works is we have a general election once every 5 years, and in that election, effectively Parliament, which is our Congress, is elected. And the leader of each party in our Parliament, whoever wins that election becomes the Prime Minister, who is effectively our day-to-day political leader. So what that means, and this lovely chap here is going to tell you a bit more about why this would be a good thing, what that means is essentially politicians are held to account. Because in this country we see a major problem, which is the fact that you have a system which is deliberately set up after the War of Independence to prevent a despotic ruler from ever being able to control anything. But that's created a problem now, and that problem is no one can achieve anything. Checks and balances that were invented and intended to prevent tyrannical despotic rule have prevented any politician from achieving their mandate. How many times have you seen an American politician throw up their hands and say, well, I know I promised to do this, but because Congress is gridlocked and because the Senate is gridlocked, we couldn't do anything about it. What we have in Britain is effectively an elective dictatorship. We have our executive branch in our legislative branch. So if you stand on a policy, you are guaranteed to have the power to carry that out. You as the Prime Minister are guaranteed, by the very virtue of the fact that you are Prime Minister, you are guaranteed to have enough votes in our legislature to be able to carry that policy out. And we think that's good for democracy. I think it's amazing that we, as a country which still has a Queen, could turn around to America and say, I think our democracy is better. Because in our democracy, politicians have less excuses. Politicians can promise to do things safe in the knowledge that if they are elected, they will have to carry them out. And if they don't carry them out, then that excuse of, oh, you know, Congress wouldn't let me, the Senate wouldn't let me, even the other way around. If you're a Republican and you've got a majority in Congress, a majority in the Senate, it must be incredibly frustrating that Barack Obama can veto anything you can do. So my first point realistically is the British system, the British democratic system, is much better. The second point I'm going to make is about heads of state. Because obviously we do have a head of state, and that head of state is the Queen. We have what's called a constitutional monarchy, where the Queen has very little day-to-day power, but still remains our head of state. Now that's really useful, because what it gives us is an apolitical figurehead to go out and be diplomatic. The Queen does not have a political position. She does not have to make campaigning speeches. So she can come out and she can say things honestly. She doesn't have to worry about re-election. And when she's meeting a foreign diplomat, she hasn't had to make a campaign speech where she's had to say, well, let's stop China from cheating. That's going to be pretty awkward the next time Mitt Romney has to sit down with Hu Jintao, the premier in China, right? That he has effectively said, your entire nation, nay race, are cheats, and we need to watch you. We say, ladies and gentlemen, an apolitical head of state is fantastic for the reputation of your nation. Look into your hearts and say to yourself, of all the heads of state in the world, of all the presidents in the world, who do you respect more, them or the Queen of England? Can you ever think of anything now? This of course applies just to the Queen rather than to her errant offspring. But the truth is, can you genuinely think of a better statesperson than the Queen of England? A person who's more respected worldwide, a person who's more known worldwide. And the sheer longevity of monarchs, the fact that she doesn't have to stand for election every year, she doesn't have to be pulled into that political mudslinging, it delivers enormous dividends and enormous benefit for the country. Now finally, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about our equivalent of the Senate, which is the House of Lords, which I think is a much better thing than the Senate. What happens in the House of Lords is politicians, individuals are appointed to the House of Lords. So, and once you're appointed, you never leave, you never step down, right? So it's our equivalent of the Senate. And imagine if you had the Senate, and once you were in the Senate, you never have to leave it, okay? So you don't have to go for re-election every 7 years. And the people who are selected to go into the House of Lords are experts. They are people who've never sought political office. They are people like scientists, like military generals. They are campaigners for social and political rights. And these people are awarded a place in our Senate on the basis of their expertise, on the basis of their experience. And we have democratic checks and balances. That they can't make law, they can't institute laws. All they can do is revise and debate laws. And we say, ladies and gentlemen, that having an upper chamber, a revising chamber, composed of experts who don't have to worry about the pressures of re-election, they don't have to worry about campaign finance. Someone in the House of Lords doesn't have to, worry about the Citizens United decision and people turning around and going, yeah, well, this pharmaceutical company is offering me loads of cash. They're independent of that. They don't have to run, so they can be honest. And we say, ladies and gentlemen, that fundamentally what's gone wrong in America is America now has the form but not the function that the founders set out for it. And we say, ladies and gentlemen, the founders would be horrified if they saw what's going on in America at the moment with gridlock, with politicians being in the pockets of special interests. And we say, ladies and gentlemen, for that reason, it's best to tear up the Declaration of Independence and come back to British rule. God save the Queen!
I'm gonna knock the last minute you'll have. I'm gonna
So that's 6, crisscross 6.
Cross X. 7 minutes.
Show search.